For this part, I intended to do things a little bit differently. Wanted to record changing the tires and removing the wheels so that everyone can see what that looks like. Though most of the folks that would watch this already know how that works. I have the bike suspended from the ceiling. Not necessarily ideal, but it's gonna hopefully get me through with medium sketchiness. We have pulled the wheels and installed Shinko 241 Trials tires. I use these on a lot of my old dual sport builds, if you even want to call this a build. I purchased new bearings, but honestly these bearings are pretty smooth and they really don't require a replacement, so we're not going to do that. I'm going to clean up the components that have come back from the back wheel and clean up the components here as well. I know they're all over the floor, don't judge me too harshly, but I've got the brakes here in the front as well. Probably asbestos, which is probably fine. Picked up a new brake cable from the local shop. I don't think this one is too bad, but it would feel a little better to me if we replaced it, so that's what we're going to do. And you really should replace all of the cables on an old bike, a bike that's 30-40 years old, but we're going to kind of piecemeal this one a little bit. These forks look pretty clean, and that's because earlier in the video I pressure washed the bike. However, there's probably very little fork oil in these. We have Bike Master 6-volt battery. I do not have a 6-volt battery charger. Thought that I did, I do not. So we'll see, hopefully that's not a problem. I need to install this Petcock. The one that's in this tank is broken off. The tank is empty, really it's just here for storage at the moment, but it needs to have the Petcock changed, and then we need to fill it with good gasoline. There's a little bit of 2-stroke oil and gas and probably water. So we'll want to get that cleaned up. And then you can see here the stable has changed a little bit. We've got a brand new Tenere 700. Still have the BMW, and I have the XL350. So there's a bit of a dual sport theme here. What I was going to do is have the cylinder rebored and do valve seals, and I still may do that, but I think initially I'm just going to ride it as is for a little bit, because really at this point, if we put new fork seals and the wheels back on, there's no reason she couldn't be ridden, and it'll be interesting to see how the bike improves. It may not improve at all. We also have a seal here that's popped out, and that needs to be rectified. Just wanted to share that before I started in on the bike. These appear to be peened in place. Maybe not peened, they're, you know, boogied out there a little bit. I said the bearings were good. After fiddling with this one, it does not. It turns and then it doesn't, and it kind of is chunky. So we're going to replace these. We're going to use an impact socket, impact driver rather. We'll see if this will bring these loose. May get a little bit loud here. We shall see. Clean the schmoo off of here. I've never seen this before. This bearing looks cooked. Not sure how else to explain it, but this is the case and it's like bubbly. Really interesting. I don't know if it's just from the old grease or what. A set of punches helps a lot here. There's a collar in the middle, a spacer. Bearings cannot have pressure from side to side, so that keeps them from pressing in. So when you tighten down the axle, it pushes straight through its solid metal. Otherwise, if you're pressing on the side of the races, you never want to press on this inner race here. It will damage those bearings. You can to some degree, but usually if I have made that mistake, I just replace them. So you can get this down in here and you can hear that spacer cock to the side. We'll tap it once on that side and tap it on the other side. It came right out. Now we got some leftover grease there. Excellent. And there we have our spacer and our bearing, and I'm not going to touch them because they're very hot right now. We will. And we'll flip it back over. This may not work quite as well just because the brake drum is recessed in here. Give it a shot. Tappy tap tap. Looks like she came right out. You can hear the burning grease. Oh, not quite out, but close. If one roll of tape doesn't work, well, just use two. Good set of punches is something that I put off, and it's one of those things that I regret putting off. It's really nice to have the appropriate tool for the job, and I know we can all laugh because I'm using tape. Purchased this recently, seen earlier in the video maybe, but it's been an invaluable tool in the short time that I've had it, so we'll get these parts here, the appropriate ones, not the brake discs or the brake shoes and that sort of thing, but these nuts and bolts and all of that sort. Got these nice little buckets here, so little baskets we can put stuff in there. So get that running and try to knock out a couple things in one go, and hopefully we'll be in good shape soon. Now that we have the wheel a little bit cleaned up, I washed it a little bit yesterday off camera. We'll get this wiped up here. We're going to get it heated up. We've got our bearings fresh out of the freezer. If you do this, be careful, you know, keep them in the bag if you can, otherwise they're going to get moisture on them. A little bit's probably going to happen no matter what, it's fine. But, you know, obviously we want to minimize that. So, I'll just match this up. It's not the best kit in the world, but I don't do a ton of this. If I do 10 million more bikes, then maybe we'll get one that's nicer. Good deal. And sounds like that one went all the way in. I'm gonna give it a little tappy tap just to be sure. You can hear the sound ringing off of these spokes. It's bottomed out. Now the next part is the important part. We don't want to forget our collar in here. Here we are. I believe this is it. Yep, that looks about right. That's probably great right there. Oh, not today. Try and get this in straight. Need a little more. We can still move that spacer around in there. That spacer keeps pressure between the races of the bearings, and I guess I was too close on the little bearing driver there. Keeps pressure on these inner races and prevents damage to those bearings. If you forget it and you put the wheel together, you'll know, because the wheel won't spin very good, because the bearings are going to be crushing against the side of the race. Ask me how I know. Well, I hope that's the right spacer, because I've still got movement in there and that's not right. Ah, our other bearing has come back out. Gently tap it. Never had that happen before, actually. Why don't we just go ahead and put this retainer on. Something I recently acquired was the actual factory service manual from Honda. And they note that you should use thread sealant. The climber manual doesn't mention anything. We'll get that with the impact in a minute. That seems more or less correct. And we'll set this down out of the way. After we impact this home. This is your best bet anytime you're working with these screws. Is to get yourself an impact driver. You can send these home and they won't cam out, and you'll know they're tight. So next up is the rear wheel, and this is probably my least favorite part of vintage Hondas. I was hoping that I had a tool that would fit in here. I have some clutch holder tools, but what you'll see is right in here they've peened this. They've used a punch to create some resistance. I wanted to say there was like a piece of steel stuck in there, but I don't think so. And then you need a special tool that bites in these 4 holes, and then you can rotate this out and get to the bearings. I don't have that tool. I'm reluctant to purchase that tool. There's only so many specialized tools I want to buy in a day. I know I harp on having the appropriate tool for the job and all that, but I'm going to give it a shot with these punches. and we'll see where we get. And I think that's a solid not happening. So this chain looked pretty new on the bike. I know that might be difficult to tell by the state of it, by the way that it is, but it doesn't seem to have a whole lot of play in it. And it is a cheap China chain, but I'm not trying to spend a ton of money on this. If I end up riding this off-road, we'll go through a couple chains probably. So I'm gonna toss this in the ultrasonic cleaner, get all the crust off of it, and then we'll re-oil it and put it back on the bike. The sprockets look pretty good also, and I'm not terribly worried about it. So yeah, we're gonna let this ride for now. So the next order of business is getting these bearings out. I kind of went on hiatus here. Again, you guys won't notice, but had to wait on this special tool here. This is an aluminum ring. It's a retainer for the bearings in here and cost, but there are some pins in here. Some people say you have to drill them out. I put just a very little bit of torque on this and it broke free. So we're not going to worry about that. I'm sure there'll be some, you know, some schmoo on there, some metal shavings. Packed full of super old grease, so we're going to scrape all that out. I can't tell if that's a seal in there. It looks like a seal to me. May have to order that. Or we'll let it ride. I haven't decided. You can see in here the bearings are, you know, I don't know what kind of shape they're in. There's a lot of dirt in here, so we're just going to pop these out, get some new bearings in, and play it safe. So it's difficult to film this bit just because of placement of the camera. I'll try to hold it up here. I think this cush drive will come out separate, but I'm not sure, so bear with me. Should consult the manual. These are 12s. Not too important, but well, that's interesting. Oh, looks like we've got some red Loctite on there. It's very hot. Pretty new looking. This is aluminum, so I don't anticipate it lasting very long. I usually run steel, but it's here, so gonna use it. I think for this part, we're going to not try to pull the race, or maybe it'll come out when I start hitting these with the drift. So Awesome. Now that we have our grimy bearings out, that are 1,000,000 degrees, we have our collar out. We can just toss all these in the ultrasonic cleaner. Not going to toss the bearings in there, mind you. Just no reason for that. We'll scrape this clean as well. Oh yeah. So there's a seal in here, and before I look it up, try to move it, I'm going to see if it came with the kit for bearings because I hate to ruin it. It should be replaced, but I hate to ruin it prematurely and find out another when I'm putting this back together. So, a lot of gunting though. Trying to block the light for y'all. It's difficult, but no shortage of grease in that pack. Probably help. I didn't put the camera on the towel there. So next piece here, we've got the bearings out. We've cleaned a bunch of stuff. Our next order of business is putting bearings in. Before we put them in, I'm going to clean some of this crap out of here though. This is the speedometer cable, and I need to get the axle out here, but it's retained. First I thought, it's pretty common to have a snap ring, but it doesn't appear to be that way. And I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but there's a little stamp here, a little dot that indicates that this is a JIS screw and not a regular Phillips. So we need to treat it as such. This screwdriver is also doubling as an impact. You can see here, these are made in Japan. Really awesome. Not sure how easy this is going to come out. Maybe it'll come out by hand. If not, I'll have to give it a whack. And she comes out right by hand. I believe when I pull this out, we'll be able to pull the cable out and it'll let me take the axle off. And the axle is still retained, so could just get the manual out. That would be the smart way to tackle this problem. However, I don't have the original Honda manual, and that makes things a bit frustrating when you're trying to work on this guy, because I have a climber manual and there are important parts missing that I wish that I had. The other thing that we can do is typically push this end and we can pull this cable out. It looks like it's been lubricated, which is nice. This is probably why it still works. We're going to re-lubricate that. I'm going to use a little bit of grease instead of what I assume is WD-40, and get her back together. If I really wanted to get this super clean, I'd clean it with some brake clean. There's some residual on this microfiber, but I'm not that worried about this. I really just want to get it working. Make sure that, you know, we've got some fresh grease in there, and call it a day. So got a brand new pot of fresh waterproof Maxima grease. I was using some other stuff and it's fine, there's nothing wrong with it, but having you know, the bucket makes it a little bit easier than if we were just going straight for the, you know, a tube out of a grease gun. This is just a more appropriate format. No funny jokes here. Just gotta slide it down in there. I can't resist funny jokes when I'm sliding this spring into this hole, but I'll keep them to myself. And now that my hands are good and greasy, this cable should be good to go on the outside. It's a little bit dirty on the inside, it should be better. We're going to clean up the outside. Got it backwards. You can tell it's been a long day. But this is one of my favorite things. Getting an old motorcycle looking fresh and clean. I don't typically restore them, but what I do like to do is just get them cleaned up, and that goes a long way with anything. You can clean it. You know, people be surprised with how much it comes back. This stuff, I tried to find a new can today. I don't remember where I got it, but it is wonderful. It's water-based, degreaser, foams up, you see it. You can spray that directly on a part or on a microfiber. And you can see here how crusty that is. You can see some rub marks on there, but otherwise it looks almost brand new. You know, I'm always impressed with this stuff. It's great. So, see if we can figure out this puzzle. It's definitely fixed in there. There's a pin here, maybe it's a small screw. I really don't know if this is visible on camera or not. Bring you into the light. Little itty bitty in there. I'm gonna see if Flathead will take care of our troubles today. Oh, butter. There we are. Little itty bitty tiny. Look at that. Well, that did not solve our problem because that goes nowhere. Might as well put that back in. Thought for certain that was a retainer. Why else would it be there? It's not. I'm confused. So let's go deeper. Let's pull this seal. Maybe there's a retainer under the seal. We're going to need a bigger screwdriver or a punch. I have a new seal. Came with our new bearings. So I'm not too worried about screwing this one up. Yeah, it's definitely screwed up now. How does she? So, turns out it doesn't seem like anything was holding this in. Just a really tight fit on there. And I'm not sure, you know, what the deal is. I don't know. Really confusing. But I just gave it a little, you know, tappy tap tap, and she came right out. Now there is a retainer in here. I probably shouldn't even bother with this. I should probably just leave it alone. Hopefully minimal swearing. Every one of these bikes is different in its own special, annoying ways. Never seen anything like this. Why a regular circlip with holes wouldn't work, I don't know. Well, it's not perfect, but she's better than she was. Give this one more rinse down. Give these a flush too. If you're not familiar with these speedometer drives, they all work a little bit different. The wheel, so this is our bearing retainer and part of what holds the hub together, but the bearing retainer. So when we screw this down, we'll put the wheel back together and these two will interlock, and as the wheel rotates it will turn this gear. So when it turns this gear, you can see there's little channels in here and they're grooved, and that's all to just keep that grease circulating. But basically what that's doing is that turns, and the turning of this will turn this guy, which plugs into the other end of our speedometer cable. This end right here goes right on that, and it spins. And then up in the speedometer there's a set of gears, and they know just how much to turn to tell you just how fast you're going. More fun with our Maxima waterproof racing grease here. I don't know what makes it racing grease, but got our replacement seals here. Looks Looks like I've got two identical ones. I don't even know. A little skeptical if it's even the right size. I know it fits the exterior, but I'm a little worried about it fitting the interior diameter. That said, we'll give it a shot. If not, I will have to order the other seal. You can see there it fits just fine, but I think the exterior diameter is not correct. Originally, it's like I can go ahead and toss the seal out because I have replacement seals. They are not the right size. Came with our wheel bearing kit. I don't really, they must go to a different bike that uses the same bearings. Hopefully the bearings are the correct size, otherwise I'll be ordering again, and we all know how much fun that is. But the original seal boogered the spring a little bit here with the screwdriver, but it otherwise looks to be intact. And you know, for now I think I'm just gonna run it. I'm gonna order another one probably, but you know, at this point in time I don't have a spare, and we're going to put the wheels on without them being balanced, and then we're going to take them over to my friend ADV Dual Sport, and you know, the idea is to ride the bike over there and then we'll just do it then. So when we do that, I'll just bring a new seal with me and it'll be fine. And it's a common slogan from the Cars and Cameras channel. I know I'm shouting out a lot of YouTube in these videos, but I watch a lot of YouTube. I learn a lot from YouTube, and it's my primary vehicle for entertainment and knowledge. It's not a perfect platform, but the people who make content are the important folks. I'm certainly not doing this to make money, and I don't think any of them started out doing the same, so that's just how it goes. But yeah, so this seal needs to sit tight on the perimeter here, and you can see there are some wear marks, presumably where a little piece of dirt or something's been churning in there for some time, you know, making hundreds of thousands of revolutions in its lifetime. So the next thing to do, we'll go ahead and do the brake shoes. Realistically, you can just slap this back on and it'll be fine. They're pretty simple. I do recommend putting on new brake shoes. I don't have new brake shoes with me right now, so we're going to use the original. You want to be careful. This dust is probably more often than not asbestos filled, so you know, don't go blowing it out with the air compressor. Ask me how I know. I'm going to just dunk this in the ultrasonic for a little bit, get it cleaned up. Just use all of your might. Pop these out. These aren't actually that bad. Typically, you want a little bit of grease on those cams. There's grease on here. It's 10 million years old. It's fine. We'll polish this up by hand. Should come out fine. Well, it's really coming down out here. Hasn't rained for a while, and frankly, it's welcome. Should have planted those tomatoes, but it's too late now. Gotta be careful with these. Sometimes there's felt in here and sometimes there's these little plastic covers. It looks like we might have both. Yeah, looks like there's some felt in there, so we'll try to clean that up carefully. Remove it. And then we're just going to toss this in the old ultrasonic for a little bit. Doesn't usually take all that long. It is a miracle tool, but you can still do it some favors by cleaning off the grease. You can see this is a grease channel here. Or was, it's pretty empty now. Apologize, the neighbors are having a party. Might be a little bit loud. Typically, you should remove this cap or loosen it anyway while the forks are still in the bike. It just gives you something to hold on to, and it makes it a much less miserable process. I forgot. I'm still getting used to filming, so we're going to take it off now with the impact gun. Make our lives easier. They are spring loaded, obviously, so you want to be a little bit careful here, but well, that looks a bit rusty. There we go. Easy enough. They're typically not on there too tight, but you know, if it's been on there for 50 years, it might be a little tight. So at this point, we have, apparently there are two sections to the spring, or it broke off. I don't have the manual open, so I don't know. Definitely a separate section of spring. These forks are all a little bit different. Process for rebuilding them is pretty much the same. So the first thing that we're going to do here is we have this drain bolt right here. And if you try to do this with the cap on, then you know you're fighting against the spring a little bit, whereas here we can just kind of pump it. Underneath of here is an Allen bolt. And this is best done with an impact, trying to remove it. If you try to remove it without an impact, it can spin, can be a little bit frustrating. That's what allows this tube to come out. So these are also a bit rusted, but the fork oil was bad, or the fork seals were bad in this, so most of this is pretty smooth. I'm still going to clean it up with some steel wool or some emery cloth, but I think it's going to be just fine. So I'm going to repeat this for the other one, and then we'll get started. Now comes the part where suggestive comments may happen. It's okay, can't usually help myself either. Usually there's a little copper washer on here for that. It's usually pretty stuck on there. I don't replace them. You're more than welcome to. Can't tell how much of this is water, but it definitely doesn't look great, whatever it is. May even spray a little card cleaner down in here. Oh, that's good and gross. My neighbors are having a grand time next door. I think they're singing. Kind of sounds like they're fighting. I don't know. Oh, this one just came pouring out. I didn't even have to touch it. And it looks completely different. This one's darker black. I think the one had water in it, maybe. Yeah, you can see the difference in the color of the springs there. Or maybe you can't. I can. Oh, the springs are cooking. I'm going to pop these loose here. Hopefully. I think that one's come loose. Maybe not quite. There we go. Got a little bit worried there for a second. Typically when you reinstall these, you want to put a little bit of silicone on them, RTV, what have you. And that now will let us pull these all the way out, which is nice. That one came out really easy. The copper washer is still stuck up in the end here. Let's see if I can get it loose. Maybe not. We'll have to pick that one out. This should all come right loose now. And I'm sure we'll make a little bit more of a mess here. But there she is. There's the forks. They're separated. And there's typically a bunch of junk down in the bottom of these legs. So that's where I'm going to just toss them in the cleaner. I'm going to work on these here fork seals. So this is the part that we actually want to get to, the part that has failed. Down inside of this tube, and you probably can't see it, but get all kinds of shmoo and everything. Right here we have a retainer clip as if these seals ever come out willingly, but they're there for, you know, just to hold them in place. So what I need to do is pop these clips out and then pull this seal out. Pausing the ultrasonic so I can show you the first one, and then I'll just do the second one because it's going to be the same boring thing. The older these are, the harder they are to get out. You do want to use wood blocks in your vise because you don't want to gum up this too much. Almost always have to use heat to get these out when they're old. You know, you want to be careful if you're prying with a screwdriver or something because you don't want to scratch the inner wall there, but really, you know, they're going to fight you typically. I'm hoping that by me saying they're going to fight me, they're going to be easy, but that never happens. Go ahead and get that clip out. And it's pretty rusty. It's pretty gross. I'm actually going to throw that in the ultrasonic probably. We'll go ahead and get the other one out in a minute. And I'm just going to gently pry on it, make sure that my I think we heard some movement perhaps. I don't think so. Nope, no movement. So we're going to torch it. Obviously don't breathe this. Can't remember what I used last time. It might have been a crowbar. Again, be careful. This whole tube is going to be hot because I just torched it, so, you know, be careful, be careful, be careful. And look at how disgusting that is. Also, I can't stress enough that the top half of this thing is hot and the bottom half is slightly less hot. So we've got most of the fork pieces cleaned and dried. And you can see they no longer have a shine to them because all the oil is gone. I'm going to polish these here in a moment. Get them cleaned up. These are not 100% clean, but they're good enough. We got all these little bits. It's really not that complicated. You just put it back together in the way that it came together. The manual should have everything for it. I've done these enough times that I'm not super concerned about it. Before I do that, I want to go over the top parts of these forks. It should be noted that the bottom clamp does most of the actual clamping work. And in this particular case, you want to be careful on the top clamps of these old Hondas, especially if you over tighten this, it will break and you will have a hard time finding one of these, and you will be sad when you pay way more than you should for it. Read the torque values. We're going to clean these up. I'm going to polish the bottom part up, make sure there's no irregularities there. There probably are a few. If you see here, you can tell there's quite a bit of wear on these forks, and I think some of that could have been avoided by changing the fork oil. Some of it's just going to happen, but you'll see all sorts of things on these bikes. I don't know that these have ever had the fork oil changed on them. I'm not judging anybody. I don't know that I would change the fork oil on my bikes anytime soon. In the BMW, the forks don't really do much on it, but I certainly haven't changed the fluid in it, and I'm sure that it's very old and very disgusting. So, I'm going to polish these up. Alright. Now, it's fork seal time. Alright, so today we're going to be putting the forks back together. And I say today, but probably on the video it's all one day. Had these all in the cleaner in the bath, and you know, the forks came out really well. Took a couple days off here. Had to do an oil change on the Tenere. Been riding it quite a bit. Very big fan of that bike, but it's another story. So we're going to assemble these forks. There's a way that the manual says to do it, and then there's a way that I'm going to do it. They're slightly different. The manual would have it that we are going to, you know, use a fork seal driver, put the forks, these components back together, and you know, go from there. We're going to put the seals in first, and then we're going to assemble the rest of it. What we're going to do here, we've got individual components, so these kind of go on the bottom here, and then we've got these little springs here, and then on top of that will go these springs here, and then a spacer, and then these springs, and then the caps, I believe is how it goes. And these retainers screw in through the bottom of the fork foot and kind of hold this from all coming apart, essentially. You'll see how it goes together. It's really simple. If you ever forget, you should always have a manual. I don't think anybody should ever rebuild a bike without a manual, but you know, someone was kind enough to set this on the forums. You should always check the Facebook groups or forums that are kind of dead, but Facebook groups now, someone had a PDF. I have this climber manual, and there's a lot of really important things that are missing in there, and I know that because I've put bikes together before. We're going to use the fork seal driver here. Well, not a fork seal driver, it's just a seal driver. I'm going to use one of the old seals. We'll just put it on top and go about it that way. And the reason that I'm going to do that in this case is these seals have springs on both sides. We want to be very careful not to hammer on this inner piece and mess it up. And if we use this, it's going to be on the outer perimeter. My seal driver isn't quite large enough to get comfortably around there. I don't feel good about it. So we're going to use that as a kind of an additional safety, if you will. It's not a difficult process. These legs have 4 pins on the bottom, so it makes it nice. They should stand up. You know. I don't always do this. I've been seeing, you know, instructions saying to kind of pre-lubricate a little bit in here, and these are dry. So, you know, I've cleaned them out very thoroughly, and there's not even a whisper of oil in there. So getting a little bit of grease, it's not going to hurt the fork oil, and it's not going to hurt the seals. I believe the rule here for these is the numbers always go up if you're confused about which way to go. And sometimes they even drop in. You don't really have to fight with them too much. But again, these have that outer seal there. So I may, let's see, if we're careful, I might be able to just press it. Yeah, I can just carefully press that in. I'll give it a tap. Again, I said I wasn't going to do what I'm doing right now, but it looks to be okay. And then we've got this retainer clip here, and that will go in the keeper. And that's just to keep that fork seal from coming back out. I've never really seen one do that. And I'll go ahead and put a little bit more grease on the inside, because when we shove this fork tube in there, we probably don't want it to be dry. Just kind of glob that on there, and we'll move to the next one. we shall take one of our fork legs here. You probably should keep track of which one of these belongs to what, but I did not do that, and so next time, you know. So we'll take this down, we're going to load it into the tube and give it a shake. And then usually for these springs there's a smaller end and there's a bigger end. I cannot tell a difference, it's not discernible from what I can see. We're just going to go with it. I'm going to go on a gut, but typically, you know, you should, there'll be an obvious shorter end or skinnier end, and I believe the skinnier end goes down. But, you know, check the manual before you build it. I don't think anything's going to blow up if you did it wrong, but obviously we want to try and do it correct. And then we've got our washer, which is down in here. And then we've got our top piece here. As far as I can tell, that is identical as well. We need to get our foot down in here. And it should just wiggle past that seal and drop down in. This can be a little bit tricky because getting this in, getting it to mate up with that foot down in there, and you probably can't see it, but if you can, great. I want to try and get this down in that. I'm just going to carefully seat it down in here. Nice and easy. And you can hear it, it just went down in. Actually, we'll take these top springs out, they really don't need to be there. Another important thing are your drain screws. These little guys, they always look the same, they look kind of rusty, and they have a little tiny copper washer on there. Probably should replace it, I never do. Never had a problem with it, but you can see here the drain. If you forget to put that in, you put this all together, you measure out your fork oil, you're going to have a bad time. It's going to go everywhere. So, next thing we need is a little bit of silicone. The manual, I believe, says to use Loctite. Most people just use silicone. I'm going to use a bit of Moto Seal. I don't think it really matters all that much. The important part is that it doesn't leak at the end. Moto Seal is great. It's a little bit different from your traditional sealing agents. So I'm going to let that set up for a second. I just spent an inordinate amount of time finding the impact, and I can tell you that if I could have all that time back that I spent looking for things, could probably be on the moon or a millionaire. So you can see this just going in down in the end. It's got it started. Is there a torque value for this? Probably. Do I know what it is? No. And, you know, it's kind of difficult to torque these because the inner piece wants to rotate sometimes. Because I don't typically trust an impact, I'm just going to put my good old socket on there, or ratchet, what have you. And then now it can't come out of there. So another thing that folks say to do is to put some lithium grease up here. I don't know. Does it have to be lithium grease? I don't know. May do that, may not do that. at this point in time. But what I am going to do is drop this seal. These are our dust seals, and they do have a seal on the inside. You should just go ahead and replace these. Sometimes they can be hard to find, and then other times they come right along with your fork kit. So this time we got lucky. Some of the bikes I had to go in special order, the new old stock replacements. You could run seal savers as well if you wanted. Any of that will work, or the accordion boots, they always look very ADV. Another thing is the drain here, and I'm going to put just a little bit of Moto Seal on that as well. The copper should do all the sealing for us really, but in the event that it didn't, or whatever, it's not going to hurt us any to go ahead and do this. Go ahead and get that buttoned up. And it doesn't take much torque to get that on there. In fact, I'd be a little concerned about over torquing it, so just use a 10mm and yep, that's good, snug. This is going to actually be take 2 for this. So I started to record same night, ran out of film and time. Well, ran out of battery power is what it was. Anyway, I went to go put this together. There's a groove on this side that has to line up, and that also coincides with the speedometer drive gear here, which is locked into this hub. Well, that's fine, it's great, except our speedometer drive gear, the screw is obfuscated by the fork leg when we do that, and so we need to put this on before we mount the wheel. If you just go, we've got these 4 nuts that go on here, and they have to be torqued in a certain order, but I'm really just going to try and get this situated, and then we'll come back and torque them. And I'll show you guys real quick the piece where it has to line up. So this part right here has to line up with this groove. That keeps that brake from rotating. On the back you have a torque link or a torque arm, and it holds on to that brake. Looks like 13 to 18, so we'll do 15. Should be all torqued. Next we need our brake cable, and that's retained with a cotter pin. I purchased a new brake cable, and when I say new, it's from the salvage shop. It is brand new, but it's probably 50 years old, so hopefully it fares better than the original. If not, I'll buy another one. So our main goal here is just to get this back together. We have a diagram for how each piece goes back into the wheel. This usually isn't a problem, but we've just got, a handful of bits and bobs. Oop, if I don't fling them all the way across. And we just need to make sure that they're in the right, correct order, if you will. We got this piece here. Sometimes when you're looking at these, it's pretty obvious or becomes obvious, but there's marks here and this rides right inside. And just get it rotated here, get some grease on it. Probably grab some grease, put on the inside there as well. Really, it shouldn't be rotating that much on the grease, but it should be rotating on the bearings, but I'd rather do it, be safe. So our other adjustment collar goes on the opposite side. Yep, that's right. So, okay. And then this should be our spacer. Uh-huh. Now comes for the challenging part, where I lift all this up and put it all together without messing anything up. Come on. And we're through. How about that? How about that? Way too much grease on there, but that's okay. Now we need to get our torque arm reconnected, which holds the brake in place so we can actually do some braking. We have our torque arm bolts here, nuts, bolts, what have yous. Yeah, that's a big spider right there. It doesn't look that big on the TV, but there he goes. Just getting this loosely mocked up here. Well, that's interesting. Usually these are solid. I like that it's not. Can be a real challenge sometimes. Having a mediocre tap and die set is always useful. It's something that, you know, I put off. What are we saying? M6 on this? Probably an M6 if I had to guess. You know, they're a little expensive, but they're, you know, worth their weight in gold when you've got a project like this and you've got these crusty old threads. Just will not cooperate with you. We're gonna have to get a wrench on there. Probably should use some kind of lubricant on here, but it'll be fine. Now we just need our brake adjuster screw wherever I put that 10 seconds ago. Here it is. And this is shaped so it can hit on the back of that hinge there. And you'll have to play with this a little bit. It's going to depend on chain adjustment and everything else. I should adjust this, but I may just put it back where it was for the time being. Take our chain cover off here. You always want to use an impact hammer or impact driver. Otherwise, you'll strip these out. And there's our sprocket cover off. Pretty gross in there, but like I said, this looks new. So I don't think she's in neutral. No, she's in first. There we go. So now we can put the chain on. First, we're gonna take our snapper off there. We gotta watch she doesn't go flying. Probably will. There we go. So I can take this master link off of here. We'll come back to that. Come on. Come on, girl. Well, I don't want to go too far. Just want to go far enough. Ah. Well. So our wheel points, we're going to roll that way, so the clip face needs to go that way. Every bike's different, but it seems awfully tight. Now that my hands are covered in schmoo, so the rear axle nut needs about 50 foot-pounds of torque. Let's see if we can give this about 50 ugga-duggas. Guess I didn't set it right, but set the torque wrench, but we're at 55, 60 foot-pounds. Everything looks relatively good. Our drive chain looks smooth. Now we need a cotter pin for here, and we need to torque this down. Probably just gonna give it some ugga-duggas. And we'll call that good for now. All right, look, third time I've tried to record this. You got, you know, big old cargo planes flying over, that sort of thing. What I really wanted to accomplish here is to just say thank you. This has been a long video. It's much longer than I intended. Thought about breaking it up, but I really thought there should be some payoff. Just gonna stop here,
but I think it's really unfair to you guys if you've watched this far to not see this thing run. So the last piece is going to be getting the choke cable installed and change the petcock and take it down the road. Does it have oil in it? Sorta. Does it need more work? Absolutely. Can we see it run, ride it down the road? Probably. So that's really the last bit of this film. Just gonna quickly get it moving, and you know, again, I really appreciate it. Choke cable kind of seats in here and just routes down, and then you can see here got the wrong choke cable on here, and there's a little arm that pulls. Pretty straightforward, but it's broken, so we're gonna have to do some zip tie engineering. Cannot find a replacement part for that. This choke cable actually doesn't go to this bike either. It goes for a 94 XL or XR350, I think, but looks the same, so I'm gonna give her a shot. Been staring at this pour tank for months, and thought really that we would be further along by now, but this is what it is. I don't think this is the factory one, but it's okay. I'm not judging anybody. This ain't the factory one either, so we'll see. I believe that tube is stuck up in there. Right. Yeah. Gotta get the sock tube thing out. However one does that. Great. Cannot win. Nope. Poor drain socks all but disintegrated. I think I got most of it out last time. I don't remember. Well, it just fell inside, so. Probably good enough. Naturally, my neighbor decides to mow his yard right when I'm gonna try and film firing this up, but we gotta get some gas in it. And we gotta get it moving before it's dark, which is coming soon. I hate, oh, come on. Should do this from the other side. Try and get it over the hump in the middle so it goes straight to the petcock. That's probably enough. Pull the new choke cable. Ah, it's stiff. I hope she starts. Wasting film, burning daylight, all that good stuff. And put some real boots on so that we don't break our ankle. What we're gonna have to do is probably take it for a ride, get it moving, and then kick it into first gear because I think the clutch plates are sticking. It happens when these have been sitting for a while. She rides just peachy. I don't have any rear brake, but I think we can sort that out pretty quickly. I think I just didn't adjust it far enough. We probably just need a whole new brake shoe if I had to guess, because that's all the way down. But I'm gonna hurry up and get the shoe adjusted.